let's get into our conversation for this hour. It's Tuesday, and so on Tuesdays we strive to have, financial conversations on one way or the other that touch on our life and money. Now, imagine a small vendor. We see them, Mama Mboga, all the time. And someone has just set up a stall on the roadside, targeting people who pass by. Are those people protected by law in any way? Now, the plight of such people, Kanjo will come and start charging. Like now Kanjo says they charge how much on a daily, right?
Yeah.
They charge on a daily. Do they provide the services? Does Kanjo give them a place? For example, does Kanjo are there toilets?
Basics, yeah.
Are those basics there?
Yeah.
Does Kanjo come to collect garbage? Like, is there a place where these people will take their garbage? So how the money that they're paying, what's it for?
Yeah.
How does it help them? When the county fathers and mothers go and discuss and they say we need to raise revenue, and one of the ways we're going to raise revenue is from these small businesses, whether it's that one selling maembe, wakuuza miwa pale kwa barabara, or one who is hawking their wares up and down. Do they consider them? Do they ask them, like, this is it, and this is the service you're offering, and this is what the service we are offering, this is how much you want to pay? Who protects the small trader?
Yeah.
There's a bill apparently in the Senate that is actually seeking to protect such traders. But then beyond that, there's a conversation that needs to happen around this. Phyllis Wangoi Kamau is our guest. Phyllis is an advocate, and she's also a public policy specialist, and she's here to talk to us about Mambo ya small-scale traders. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's an early morning for you.
Yes.
Tumezoea haya. Now, we also don't do late nights.
That's the trade-off.
I'd imagine if you're not an early morning person, then you're a late night person.
Yes.
You'd be asking for us to meet you at 11 p.m.
Yeah. At 1 p.m.
Or at 1 a.m.
Yes.
Like as you were talking to somebody at 1 a.m. Miss me with that. Unless ni football. Na ni Arsenal.
Spain.
Is stuck.
Spain has I think they bahati too.
It was World Cup final. Okay? So that one, it was just the World Cup final you were watching. It was a one-off. But to welcome you to the conversation, Phyllis is going to give you the day's quote, words that were said by somebody, and let's see what they say to you.
Okay.
Karibu sana. Today's quote is courtesy of a man that was the 66th Attorney General of the United States. And the quote reads, "A right is not what someone gives you. It is what no one can take from you." How does that speak to you?
Absolutely. And I think it speaks a lot about our small traders because they really operate in a very gray area where they don't seem to have any protection of the law. They actually are treated as illegal traders because many of them are illegal. They're in streets, they're not in shops, they are not in designated areas. And therefore, many have faced a lot of regulatory challenges, particularly from county governments who are the first line of the government in which they operate under, because county governments are in charge of markets, small markets, and roadsides. Some of them are within the jurisdiction of the county governments. And what has ended up happening is that a lot of small businesses face multiple challenges. In just last week in Kiambu, there was a hue and cry. There's been hue and cry around harassment for small businesses. And I just shared with Latif what I had seen online, which was a manual receipt. And in that manual receipt, this small business, which they actually sell snacks. So really, maybe they are a hawker hawking snacks. If you look at that receipt, the multiple number of charges that they have to pay amounting to 10,650 or something, from application fee, the actual business permit itself, I don't know, fire license, I don't know what. There's so many heads of fees that make up this 10,000 and something. And perhaps that small trader, even in their for their annual whatever they add, doesn't even amount to that. So there are multiple challenges these street vendors are facing. The second one is for a long time up to now, street vending isn't recognized as a legitimate business actually. Many of them as seen as illegal. They are not carrying out any legal business. And so that's why they kept being chased away and being harassed. And even though, as Latif is saying, actually the county government does collect taxes or levies from them, they don't accord them then any services because they are not legitimate. So they have no right to ask the county government for public health services, for a toilet, for proper, sanitation around themselves. And therefore, there's a huge gap. And I was in Githurai when the markets were being destroyed. They were on the street. They were on a road reserve. A lot of them have been in road reserves, and they are facing eviction or imminent eviction. And I was there, trying to get them a court order to stop this eviction. But then, I realized, even with a court order, it can be it will be challenged. Even if you get it, it's temporary because indeed you're on a road reserve, so you will still be evicted. But then I asked myself, these are human beings, and you rightly say this, a right is something that someone can't take it from you. What can we do for them to actually guarantee them? The Constitution guarantees all of us a right to dignity. How can we just have something in the bare minimum that can guarantee dignity? I kept asking myself, why are these people coming at night? Should there not even be a law to say that even when you want to evict, even when you have a 30-day notice, please come between 8 and 5.
Yeah.
Why are you coming at night at 2 a.m.? Why should people in Gekomba wake up one morning and find the market completely destroyed? In Gekomba, people lost. There are people who had machines. In fact, the section that was destroyed is where people make uniforms, and they had
sewing machines.
This is industrial investments that they've done for years. I mean, should we not have a law? Why are we operating a goon country? Why are we coming at night? And these are policemen, with a lot of force, and therefore most of the traders are not able to recover their goods. And therefore, I really felt there was need to sanitize. There's need to sanitize street vending, street hawkers, and make it legitimate. The rate of unemployment in this country is so high that it is documented that street vending is actually the first step for many Kenyans, 80% of employed people, to start earning any form of income, okay? And therefore, the minute you threaten this person, you push them to the poverty line. Today, our poverty line, I think about maybe 60% is living below the poverty line. And therefore, the more we don't perhaps provide a framework for small micro businesses with a basic level of environment to help them now grow to the next level, then we will not be addressing poverty in this country.
Let me ask you, Phyllis, from counties, let's even say Nairobi, Kiambu, Kajiado, Machakos, or the major urban, Nakuru, Mombasa as well, is there any a category of a trader that's not in a single premise, in a fixed premise? Because you see, you go and apply for a business permit, they'll ask you for business location, where you put the LR number. So is there a category that does not ask for LR number?
So they, maybe someone would not then mark there, because then those are now the hawkers or the street vendors who don't really have that, okay? And what most counties then tend to do, they would then charge them on a daily basis or, such things.
But as they are charging, is there anywhere where they have formally recognized that this is a business?
There's no. In fact, part of the challenge is our laws still look at SME. The micro, small still struggles to get into the law. And that's why I think Senate, in their wisdom, came up with this Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood bill, which is now actually moved from Senate to the National Assembly to try and recognize micro, small businesses. There is MSME policy that's sitting at the Ministry of MSME and Cooperatives, which essentially wants to streamline and bring up a whole policy that brings into focus micro, small businesses. I think for a long time we were talking SME. And SME, you can describe it, the law does describe, the level of what that looks like in terms of the number of employees, maybe the turnover they make every year. But for a micro, small business, it's a level lower, and that's where majority of these small businesses really are.
Yeah.
Let me start with the basics of who is considered a street vendor.
Yeah.
And I know Eric was kind of going in towards the same thing. Who is considered a street vendor?
So
And even if actually just go ahead.
I think a street vendor is anyone on a street, on a highway, outside a building, who is just hawking on a street, on a pathway, or on a highway. And
that's going to be my next question.
Yes.
What's the difference between a street vendor and a hawker, or are they the same thing?
So
Are
a
all
street vendor
hawkers
could be
street
a
vendors?
hawker, because a hawker means you're walking around.
Yeah.
A street vendor, some of them are actually, they've designated a location and they've put up even a tent or an umbrella, and they're sitting there. So if you look at the bill, actually, that is types of street vending. So you could be hawking in the sense that you're walking around with your wares, or in fact you've set up some location on this. And but the whole idea is that both of them are considered illegal, because what are you hawking? You are on the street, you're on Uhuru Highway. You're not supposed to be doing that along that highway. Or you're on Uhuru Highway and now you've set up your umbrella there. You're still not allowed to be there. So what this law starts to say is, okay, all of these guys are doing legitimate business. For the first time in our country, we want to say, hawking, you are allowed, you are legitimate, you are not illegal, okay? And you there on the street, you're also not illegal. However, you can operate within the precepts of the law, or within the confines of the law, in the sense that the government can designate certain areas, or, for street vending, or we can designate certain times. So you don't just hawk all the time, but then you are told, okay, between this time and this time, you could hawk. Or within this designated area, you can set up. And I think people like these guys who do Masai Market, they do that really well. Because they operate within a certain designated area. Or let's say private people like mall owners would then allow them a certain area, a certain time
At a fee.
to actually set up that. And it's the same model that we want to say. Of course, you don't also want to have a disorganized city. Part of why they keep being chased away is urban planning. You are somewhere you shouldn't be there. Okay. We've also seen them come into conflict with proper markets, because we have people who are inside market stalls, they're paying for stalls, and then as soon as you've done that, now there's Mama Mboga who is outside there. Okay. So there's also a whole conflict around people who are actually legitimately within their shops, and they're paying for that. And you who is just outside there, and people and the market traders who are inside also feel, hey, this guy is not paying taxes, he's not even paying for a building, they're probably making more than I am, and yet I'm being the one being charged, and they're running away from actually paying the taxes themselves. So then how do we then have a balance between these two? And one of the things is, then one of the things is, then outside a proper market shouldn't be a designated area for hawking. Okay? Because it's a legitimate concern. But what we are saying is that we should have these legitimate concerns properly conversed into a policy or into a law, okay? And many countries have done this. I think when I was researching this, one of my benchmarks was somewhere like India, which faces the same situation, South Africa, which countries that have had the same issues. But the reality is that we've reached to a point where we need intervention. I don't think street vending will ever end in this country. In Githurai, you can keep chasing them; they will still come, because where do you expect them to go? Part of why I was so disappointed when I was in Githurai was, the area in which they were being chased was a huge area, it's about 30 meters, and whatever the government wants to build, the bus park couldn't even occupy that entire space. And actually, what the traders were saying, can't we coexist in a way? Is it possible for you to build a bus park? And if you look at most development countries, the bus park is actually a market. So there's where people whatever, and then there's the market that's built up or whatever it is.
It makes sense. You buy before you get on the bus to go home, or
you buy.
You get off the bus and then you buy.
So many of them are aware. Of course, this wasn't legal, but somehow Kenya allowed us to be here for 40 years. So now you want to wake up one morning with a 7 days notice
Tell
and
us
tell
to
us
go.
to move.
And to move into
And when
that
we are
structure
still
then.
arguing with you, one day in the night, you come and demolish. So one of the things we are saying through this law is that there has to be a proper recognition of street vending. There has to be a proper designation of where, process to designate where street vendors can hawk or sell or be there. There has to be a legitimate process, proper process. Should the government say, okay, we don't want you here today, what should this process be? And I strongly would canvass that we have to legislate, even stop these night raids and night demolition or burning of markets, that are properly illegal. And even say that if you want to evict them, please evict them during the day. We want to see you those people who come and demolish these markets, let it be done between 8
But
and
you
8
know what will happen, Phyllis. That now becomes
be a
war.
conflict.
Yes, and we want that war in the morning because
I want to throw a spanner in the works here.
Yes.
It's good, let's talk about, let's formalize this thing, let's regulate. Regulation means something.
Yes.
Regulation will bring an inconvenience to somebody who's used to operating in that chaotic space.
yes.
Are we sure that our traders want order?
I think
Are we sure that our traders... Are there traders who thrive in the chaos?
I think there are traders who thrive in the chaos.
And
But
so
when you
those
look
ones
at
will
it,
be the first ones to fight this thing.
Yeah.
You're
But-
trying to come and bring orders. There'll be no.
Even what I wanted to ask Phyllis was, is there a group that has emerged as the leaders of these hawkers, small traders, who will come out and say, we've collected the opinion of all the traders, na hivi ndio tunataka. I mean, are they part of this? Has their voice been heard or making up this, bill?
Yeah.
Is this someone who's picked up a problem and said, you know what,
and
I'm
created
gonna
a
fix
solution
it.
for someone?
And maybe they don't want that fix.
And to Eric's question, we were discussing this coincidentally with Phyllis earlier. You will be walking in town, ukanyanganyanya mtu moja, anakwambia sasa nunua zote. What's happening? So sometimes you get the sense it's working for them. Just ni kanjo tu ndio shida, but otherwise location
okay with it.
mimi niko sawa. Because ikiuza stock moja, I mean stock yote off of one accident. It's not a bad business day.
So I think for them, they thrive in the chaos because perhaps they don't understand something better can come out of this. Honestly, I think so. Because when you look at most of these small businesses, they are just trying to survive, okay? They're trying to come out from poverty. But if there is no framework or a policy to help these people grow to the next level, maybe that's why many of them are still hawkers for 40 years, for 30 years. And that's not the life that we want to build. And I think public policy tries to think about this thing in 20 years, in 30 years, how does this look like? And if we have a progressive policy that helps these small businesses grow, because it's a holistic policy. We were talking to the Ministry of Cooperative and we were saying beyond license, because the biggest problem I had with this bill is I feel you're right. I don't even think it solves their problem because it's another draconian hurdle. Because when you look at that bill, it is about now adding new business permits, because the minute you tell them you need to register, you need to be formalized now, the next thing is, what is registration? There's a registration fee. There's a what? So will this really help small vendors or will it give Kanjo even more draconian powers to look at these guys? And one of the things when we appeared before the committee, I said this is not protection of livelihood. In fact, it is threatening the livelihood, the very livelihood. Because when you start to say a hawker who is selling snacks, and you've seen them, these ones who hawk tea and the mandazis, and then you ask them for a public health compliance. That is it. You know.
Just hold that thought, Phyllis. We'll be right back to just look at what this bill is solving for. And I'm happy that you've brought up that point. Are we just piling on more problems to people who are not even looking for these kind of solutions? We're in conversation with Phyllis Wangui, who is a public policy expert, as we get to look at how we can best protect street vendors. This is Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time.
Today, in our finance conversation, we are talking about business, small businesses. The other day we had a small trader, someone who's just started a business, Kazia, laundry, and he was just complaining about the kind of harassment and the back and forth that he had with the Nairobi City County government. Today, we are expanding that conversation into all other small traders, nano, micro enterprises, and small enterprises. We're not going to the middle today. Those ones, how do they operate in our spaces? Think of that umse wa mayai. You know, mayai pasua, na smoky, na kona kakat. Does that person have a license? Is that person legitimately recognized by the county authorities to operate there? That license, because it's food, does it have, you know, food handler's license and also? Or those guys who wake up early in the morning and they're walking around with amebeba ndoo moja hapa hivi na tungumu na flask ya chai and they're going hawking and selling. Are those recognized? And that's why we have a public policy expert who's participated in, you know, giving feedback to the Senate on a bill that's before the Senate, the Street Vendors Protection Bill that's before the Senate. But beyond that, let's just talk about what's happening. Phyllis, you've shared with us this receipt that you got from a vendor in Kiambu County. It shows they are in Biashara Ward, Githunguri. It's actually a piece of paper. It's a receipt. County Government of Kiambu with a county emblem there. Name of business, of course, that's been redacted for obvious reasons. Type, size of business, snacks. This receipt is dated 13th of July this year.
Okay.
The particulars are application fee, 500 bob. Fungua calculator. Application fee, 500 bob.
Yes.
Okay.
Single business permit, 4,300. Remember, this is a biashara of snacks. Can you imagine that this person, because they don't have an LR number, they have a kiosk somewhere. Solid waste, 2,400. Fire, 1,100. Public health inspection, 1,000. Public health certificate, 2,000. The total comes to 10,750. That is the permit that this particular vendor of snacks needs to pay to the county government to continue operating. Is that fair? Is that justifiable?
This is per?
Yeah.
But
If
it's
you
payable
divide-
one-off.
It's
So one-off.
that's the thing, and that's also the problem. It's payable one-off, lump sum.
7,000?
10,750 shillings. Na biashara yako ni snacks.
Alafu hapo ndani kuna kitu inaitwa single business permit.
Yes.
And then we continue to other permits.
Yes.
Which is the same thing we asked when we had Tyrus here, and of course our fixer na Hashon as well. Unalipia single permit alafu pia unaendelea kulipa ingine. Unalipia advertising permit alafu ukieka pale unaeka ingine. There's just something about the system that isn't, I would say,
fair,
coalescing, working together. But that's an example of what someone is supposed to pay. Realistically, from what you know, what traders make, how many days' wages is that to lipa this 10,750?
So, of course, you know, these traders are struggling. Most of them, maybe even their stock is 1,000 shillings, which they keep revolving around. But part of this challenge here is we've always spoken. The World Bank has tried to legislate, to help policy for many years, for us to get to a unified single business permit for businesses. The reality is that complying to multiple agencies, from public health to fire to, I don't know, solid waste, when you have charged the single business permit, but you still don't have one unified permit to make it easier for these people to even comply. Because what is a 4,000 in this receipt? What is 4,300? I'm not renting any property from the county government. That the 4,300 is in fact the business permit for me to operate. But then you don't give me a unified, way to comply. You're adding all these other charges. And granted, you know, counties are arguing, we need to increase our own source revenue. Okay. For instance, Kiambu collected 5.1 billion last year. They want to double that. This year they have a target of 9 billion on source revenue. And they say, this is why we need to continue, charging, expanding. But they're not doing it in the right way, because we need to make it easier and simpler for our small businesses to comply. I don't even think those people hawking are necessarily opposed to paying some sort of fee, okay? As Eric was saying, maybe break it down to a monthly so that they're able to comply based on the size of their business. Okay, make it clear, make it a simple one-off, or unify this, because then what happens when you now have this receipt with all these multiple charges? A fire guy will come and harass this guy.
Yep.
A public health guy will come and harass this guy. As now the actual business permit inspection person will come and harass this guy.
Solid waste.
So, and so they keep facing multiple harassment from several people. And this then completely makes it so difficult for people to do business. And there are counties that have tried to do this. I think Machakos has tried to implement the unified single business permit model. They've tried to fully digitize their business permit process, because if you digitize this, then maybe it could be easier to then break it down and say, okay, you can pay it in installments, and those installments will be seen. Now, this small trader will then keep maybe bribing the guy so that he doesn't come. I'll try and make this money next week. And then next week he still doesn't have the permit, so he's operating illegally. But the reality is that maybe if it's broken down, maybe he can pay.
You'd actually be paying. That bribe
Yes.
would be going towards paying
The
fee, and he'll have.
So we are saying the county governments should have a proper policy to manage MSME businesses. I was seeing like Kakamega and I think Nakuru have MSME desks. They are trying to create even a unified first business permit, full digitization, and perhaps even an MSME desk that can help to manage this. They can put in a proper policy for one-off payments or installment payments. The county governments could probably be able to do this. Usually they provide the first 3 months, but it is clear that even the first 3 months are not enough. Okay, this is a July receipt, meaning this guy has struggled to pay this since January. So I think the reality of the matter is we should provide a more enabling environment. I think we should be alive to the challenges our small businesses are facing, and really not run away from the problem, because it doesn't help us to run away from the fact that we have hawkers in this country. It doesn't help us to run away. We should face the elephant in the room and try and provide a holistic policy. And it's the responsibility of both the national government and the county government. I think all of them, both levels of government have an intervention. At the national level, the national government is trying to come up with the MSME policy. And I think it's a positive step towards then trying to come up with a holistic framework. We should have a full policy that says single business permits should be unified, and county governments should then adopt into this policy. It should be unified. It is time that we really move into that and make it a reality. We shouldn't be seeing this in this time and day.
No, sorry, I wanted to just ask, on the flip side of it, which is we are moving towards having these protections for hawkers, recognizing it as legal, having a unified business permit. And then there's the other end of it, which is also zoning cities and counties. And looking at the street vendors protection of livelihood bill, which is now, like you said, has moved from Senate to the National Assembly. Has vending zones. So there is vending zones, restricted or restriction-free vending zones, and restricted vending zones, and no vending zones. Walk me through, for example, in Nairobi, what that would look like. What would be a restricted, what would be free, what would be no vending? So,
I mean, there would be areas where people cannot vend, okay? They could designate certain public areas. We have, let's say, I've seen this place opposite the High Court. There's usually this
where Masai Market is,
the car park, or the car park area.
The Koinange car park.
Maybe at certain hours the cars can leave, because maybe by 8 most of the parking is free, and the street vendors can occupy that. So there are various areas where they can designate. I think in areas which are so congested and there is no space, where you're even stepping on the nyanya for this person, or where the cars are actually parking and the street vendor could even be hit. I think those areas can be removed. I honestly think, of course, it's hard, because you could still find people who are illegally still running around. And what we've said is, I think what is progressive is to have the policy that continues to dignify and formalize these small traders. And what we've said, the registration shouldn't be to punish them. It should be for the government then maybe to extend this I don't know, women enterprise fund, youth fund to them, because access to capital is part of the challenge they face. So if you're really saying we need to protect their livelihood, we need to document them so that if we've designated an area for them, then we can have a public toilet near it. We can have some sanitation levels around it. Then I think progressively that then dignifies hawking or street vending, because what has happened over the years is nothing. It's so indignified. The way they are chased, the way their lives are so temporary, and in a split of a second, your whole stock can just be completely whatever, and then there's no accountability to this same county government.
But Phyllis, if you think about it, the Mama Mboga and co are always used as a political tool.
Yes.
So the goodwill to enforce these things, because this conversation on small traders has not started now. It's been going on for years, 20 years plus. And every other administration comes in and says, I am going to fix ABCD for you. So if there's a lack of political goodwill in terms of implementing these solutions, it will always be a very shiny dress that we are here parading and saying this is what should happen, but there's no political goodwill. And that political goodwill starts from the very basic level, which is the units that represent those sections. So if you're having, say, the members of county assembly, say for Madari or for whatever other jurisdictions there are, what are they doing at that level so that at least we can trickle it down to national level? Otherwise, again, it continues being a thing that we're always talking about. Then there's this other side for two rights existing. So there's the citizens' right or the public right to use these spaces, and then there's also the right that these small traders have to use those same spaces. So there's a conflict there, and that conflict has to be addressed. Otherwise, you'll end up in a situation that, again, we've all had to deal with. Like Mariam was saying, unatoka unakanaganya mtu, you have to pay for it. How do we marry these two? How do we make sure that our interests as a public are taken care of and their interests are met?
And that's why I think that's why we need the law, because the law, what it is trying to do is to balance that, to designate certain areas, to make these Kanjo guys accountable. This actually law makes it an offense, because what has happened is some of these traders even have licenses, but they still face harassment, and that's why they keep crying like this. Because then someone will just come and throw your your wares out, because anyway you are not supposed to be there. So there has to be accountability. There has to be a balance. I feel we need to get somewhere. We need to intervene. And I think, granted, we've also progressed as a country over the years to try and address the issue of informal traders. In Africa, it's a whole problem. I think we are trying to move into more better steps. And I think bringing in a law that at least tries to recognize this as a formal, as a legal way to actually do business within certain parameters, and bring a level of compliance and order for this, and at least a level of dignity, to me, helps it. I don't see how a trader who has been in Gikomba, which is even in fact a market, for 40 years, wakes up one morning and finds his store completely destroyed. And you're arguing on one side, no, we gave them notice to get out of here because we need to modernize this market. I don't think it justifies that. Nothing in my own sense as a person, even beyond being a lawyer, justifies that. And granted, maybe we shall never perfectly solve this problem, but I feel we are it's 2026. We need to do better. We need to move. We need to help. We need to use digitization to help us do better for small traders. We need to recognize it because it will never go away. We should see a stop to some of these very, very inhuman practices in our country. I don't see how we are still moving around to destroy people's properties in this day and age. So what I feel is that there has to be a progressive way. Policy needs to evolve with how we are evolving. We are collecting more in terms of revenue. That revenue needs to work for the people of Kenya. That revenue needs to work for the same hawkers that we collect. In fact, when they were demolishing Githurai, they were actually, those traders were saying, but the county government actually collects
Money from us.
Why? Where are they? And they never even showed up when Kenya was demolishing them. And part of that is that conflict.
Yes.
That actually exists between county government and national government. Sometimes the traders are even caught in that conflict, and they do not know then who helps to solve their problem. Okay, when they're in a highway, but that same highway, the county government is collecting taxes from them.
True.
And then one day Kenya wakes up and says, no, you need to move.
You're on the road reserve.
You're on a road reserve.
Okay.
Should there be better ways for dispute resolution? Should there be better ways for public participation for these traders?
Yes.
And when we then started talking to our small traders about this law and even markets, they're starting to appreciate, oh my God, so there could be a legal way to address some of these concerns. There could be a better way. Maybe we could participate in committees where our voice or our public or our opinion is actually taken into account. Maybe they better need to understand where the county government is also coming from by saying you shouldn't be trading here because this is not a proper designated area for you to trade. This is actually a crossway. Okay, or a roundabout. It doesn't make sense, or a bus stop.
Yeah.
Okay, and granted, it's hard to manage people and for people to feel accountable, but I feel like we can make small steps that help to modernize, street vending, to help to formalize part of this informal business. And in the long term, the government may end up even increasing, their taxes.
I think it certainly will.
Yeah.
They'll make a lot more. If you structure something, organize it well, make it affordable so that no one feels the need to be ducking around whenever they see Kanjo coming.
Yes.
I think they'll collect a lot more. But I wanted to talk about the goodwill, which is something you were alluding to. This bill, imeandikwa 2023, meaning that's the first time it landed in Parliament.
Yeah.
That's 3 years ago. It's been in the Senate for 3 years. What's been happening? Walk me through how this bill is received in Parliament, because we've talked to lawmakers here, and you realize that unless something has like bipartisan support or is being lobbied aggressively either by the executive or someone else, for a regular Monanchi bill to get through Parliament,
It's tough.
you need God's grace and much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right, this bill came into Senate. Actually, it was first brought to National Assembly as a Senate bill, and being a Senate bill, that is why it's heavily focused on county governments. And part of my problem was that because street vendors are in highways, which is outside the authority of county governments, what happens to those ones? And then it had its life. It actually was debated in Senate, and it was passed by Senate. But a Senate bill goes to the National Assembly now, to Parliament actually.
Yeah.
And now when it went there, it went to the departmental committee, which started arguing that it's a money bill. It shouldn't have originated from Senate. It should have originated from the National Assembly. And now we are stuck there. And in fact, actually, we are the ones who pushed for the department to actually prioritize its public participation when we discovered after Githurai market demolition that maybe this bill could help us. And
so we're calling it a money bill.
Yeah, because anything that has implication on tax collection and revenue raising measures is a money bill. So a money bill originates from the National Assembly. So now it is facing that technical issue.
It's a technicality that can be resolved very fast.
But it can be
honestly,
resolved.
it's a man-made technicality because how I'm looking at it is, it is whose interest does it serve? And the political goodwill has to be there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody pick it up and use it as a tool to campaign, because once you solve that problem and you're solving it to address the needs of those people, automatically you get the buy-in of them. But again, who's going to be that person? Who's the Jesus in this case? But those technicalities are just neither here nor there.
I think in many ways, one of the things that as we're having this conversation, I'm just thinking, we do things in piecemeal and very disjointed. Look at, for example, the national program on, building markets. Okay, so part of the money that people are paying into their housing levy is going into building markets. So there are markets that are being built across the country. Githurai had a market that was built a long time ago. There's a huge structure there. It took long to complete it. Always the question is, has that market been built with full realization that the people who you want to go there have to see it making sense for them. And that is the traders plus the customers. Will they be willing to go there? Is it close to them or is it not? If it's not, then it's a whole issue. I'll give you an example of Sokomjinga. You know Sokomjinga on the way to Nakuru, right?
Yes.
Sokomjinga is this place that is just, by the roadside. It developed into a big market. People from inside Nyandarua food basket, they come there with their mbogas, and then it became a market. So trucks come, they pick mbogas, they go. The county government of Nyandarua decided to build a nice modern market, about 100 meters from Sokomjinga. Nice market on the roadside, nice, okay? Yes. Nobody went there. Nobody. The Sokomjinga people. It rains, it's matope, it's all, they were there. And outside. Why?
Because it's the idea is you slow down in traffic kidogo, there's a waru coming in through your window, there's a passion fruit on the other side.
Yes, this one is still also on the side of the road. It's by the side of the road. Now the thing is, Kenha did not make a road, a way that you enter into this market. Okay? The guys who are building the market have just done the market. They've not done parking. They've not done storage. The trucks that are building this in the knees, where are they parking? In Sokomjinga, they're also parking behind. There's so all that thing was not factored in. So you find traders are not moving in. Even as we develop all these markets, are we putting them where they're, like you said, Mariam, earlier, close to high traffic, bus stations, high traffic, such high traffic. Are you putting in all the facilities that are needed there so that if I buy my wares, I can carry them and get into the next matatu or bus and go home? If we're not doing all those things, then we have issues. Same here. We're talking about small traders, vendors, and so on and so forth. We are creating markets like Mwarero. What's the access to Mwarero market? Good market, as Phyllis went there and she has testified. She has seen with her own eye. But access, problem. And all. So if we are talking about these vendors and how to improve the vendors, and we're not thinking about the entire ecosystem of what works for the trader, what works for the customer, what then will work for the county authorities and the revenue collectors, it'll just be another thing that will be looked at as an impediment to trade. The traders will be looking at it and saying, "Sasa wanasema ati go and register. Then I do what? Then I pay for licenses. Then they shall designate me. Today they'll tell me now you can operate along Uhuru Highway up to this time, but not on the highway itself, on the side of the highway."
And that's exactly when we appeared to the committee, that's what we were telling them. This has to be human-centered. You have to look at this from the eye of the traders. It has to be realistic, because this is what the challenges we are facing. They've built a market, but it doesn't still serve the need of the actual traders. And when we appeared to the committee, I think that was the realization. They went back on the drawing board with this bill, because we said, as drafted, it's going to be a huge problem to the traders. We need to allow more public participation. We need to have a bill that go to these traders, let them know that this bill is coming up so that their views are taken in, and we can come up with something that really solves our problem. I've been going to some of these markets myself, and I see what works well, what doesn't work well. They have a huge problem. Some of them, the way they've been built, even they're cold, they're not accessible in the right way. But there's some good things. I think there's markets that have provision for mothers. I think this was the best I saw in, I think, Ruiru Market, where there's a lactating area for mothers. Because again, most of these traders are women.
Yes.
And this is the challenge, that gender mainstreaming also in terms of how we think about markets should be a factor. When we went for the public participation, the Ministry of Gender was there, and I was happy because most of this, the rights of children as well, most of these mothers have children on their backs, and you see how those kids get harassed on the street, so there's a bit of gender mainstreaming that needs to come into this conversation. And we should have this. I think for me, people shouldn't, as policymakers, as legislators, we shouldn't use this for political mileage. we shouldn't run away from the problem that we have for hawkers. I think it calls on us as policymakers to think about how does this move the needle? How do we make it better? Is there any intervention that can make this better? And I believe this bill is a right step, but we need to work on it a lot so that it doesn't come to become another draconian policy. But it's a policy that helps to improve the livelihood, the actual livelihood of
the traders,
and protect their lives.
Thank you, Phyllis. And we hope that the National Assembly will actually deal with this bill before next year, so that it doesn't lapse because of time. Phyllis, I know because of this kind of work, people who are listening to you this morning are like, but she needs to be a policymaker. You'll come and tell us whether people have told you to be a policymaker and join politics, and you should as a fixer. She's a fixer. Phyllis Wangoi Kamau, a public policy expert, has been our guest. We've been talking about protecting the livelihoods of small traders, small vendors. In the next hour, there's a judiciary, the JSC, and the Law Society of Kenya. Kinaumana. A JSC commissioner is joining us next.